I'm not so much into the
stream is live.
Yes, we are.
Oh, we're live.
Good. It actually worked.
The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Rise and shine, my sinners. When Father Evil starts his day, he gets a little deadly. Deadly Grounds coffee has the richest, smoothest flavor you'll find anywhere. It's sinfully delicious. Once you go deadly, you never go back. Order yours at getdeadly.com. Coffee's so good, it's scary.
Persons under 18 will not be admitted.
What the fuck are we gonna do now? Get high? Hey everybody, you know what time it is. It's time for another kick-ass episode of Still Toking with. You know who I am, so I'm not going to introduce myself, because if you don't know who I am by now, then, you know, I don't know what to tell you. But with me tonight, again, is my boy Jags in the house.
Well, yo.
Thanks
They
for
don't know who I am. They should already know who I am.
Well, yeah, but you know, you haven't made the intro credits yet.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Maybe after this season.
I should at this point.
It's how it happens. They just keep dragging you back in, Jags.
I know.
And that little voice you hear in your head, as always, is my man, George.
What is up, everybody? Wednesday night, and what a show. Are we ready to start this?
Dude, I've been ready for like 15 freaking minutes, but StreamYard for some reason said, "Oh, there's a little too much traffic here. You know, you got to wait a minute."
Yeah, you're having a lot of technical difficulties these past couple of weeks on that.
Well, it's
Yeah,
not me, it's StreamYard.
Maybe you got to grease some palms.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe I got to grease some palms. Or maybe it's the internet going, wow, the caliber of guests they have tonight, you know, we want people to just really sit and wait in anticipation. I think that might be it.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Anyways, today we have a true entertainment industry legend with us, from Brooklyn to Broadway, nightclubs to cruise ships. He's done it all. And more, because I learned behind the stage of some wild shit. He's an Emmy Award winner and a Grammy nominee, and critics call him a walking encyclopedia of the show business. Please welcome the multi-talented Geoffrey Mark. Whoa.
Wow, he sounds great.
Thank you.
I can't wait to hear what he has to say. I'll bet he's really good looking and a stud in bed. Hi, boys.
Right?
Good evening. How are you?
Very happy to be with you.
Oh, that's fantastic.
We're happy to have you. We're happy to have you. I mean, Jeremy, you just kind of gave everything away. I mean, the show's over.
We've got so much more. You don't even know what's coming yet. Jeremy, I love the comic books. I am considered a Silver Age Superman expert.
Oh, really?
Oh, sometime I want to have a nice geek out with you about DC Comics in the 1950s and 60s and early 70s.
See, I collect back then, but the reading for back then was just like not my exact story. I have Batman from like, I'm sure everybody cares about my collection of Batman, but I've been collecting Batman forever. So I have from issue, I want to say 160 of volume 1 all the way through to like 113 of volume 3. So yeah,
you got started in the early Silver Age of Batman and go forward from there. Yes.
So see, Jar Jar, now Geoffrey would be an amazing guest for Splash Pages.
I'm glad he knows. Look at that. He even knew that was the Silver Age.
I mean, I could have given you the month and year if you really wanted it that badly, but
look at that.
So let me jump in real quick. You
Please.
Actually, do you have a book? Is it a book called Voices from Krypton?
I am in a book.
You're in a book.
Voices from Krypton is an oral history of Superman, written by a dear friend of mine, Ed Gross, and I am considered all around the world an expert on 1956, 57 to about 1970 DC comic books. And it isn't that I didn't read Marvel. And yes, I'm another one of those people who had Spider-Man #1 and Fantastic Four #1. My mother did throw them away when I went to college. But my reading pleasure was DC Comics. Superman, Batman, Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, World's Finest. And folks out there who aren't comic book fans, oh boy, are we boring the shit out of you. Sorry about that.
Oh, absolutely.
They're like, wait a minute.
I was kind of split. I liked DC and Marvel, but it was certain things. Like with DC, I was real big on Batman and Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle is like my absolute fucking favorite. And then Marvel, I was all about fucking X-Men. Huge X-Men fan.
Well, Blue Beetle was a character that DC bought from another company who had just sort of lingered on the shelf for a couple of decades. And when DC bought the company's characters, they resurrected Blue Beetle. The Blue Beetle is Bronze Age DC, not Silver Age.
Oh, that's cool. I did not know that. I read the comics and I loved the character and I loved everything about it. And I became a huge Blue Beetle fan.
He's a damn nerd.
I am.
It's why he smokes the cigar to throw us off track.
I may not look like it, but I am a huge nerd, and my wife could tell you that I am.
Well, see, you said the word wife already. You're not exactly a nerd. You're actually married to a woman.
Yeah.
I assume you have relations.
All in the geek realm.
So you're not quite the comic book nerd.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You're spending Friday nights home where they're spending it at the comic book store.
Hells to the
So, like I said, Jar Jar, I mean, I'll put you in touch with the gentleman that can get you in touch with Mr. Mark here to get him on Splash Pages, because I'm pretty sure you guys could totally nerd out.
I would love to.
Oh, and
Him and Drew
but
would-
we're doing this show now.
Oh, that's right.
let's
We
do
are. We
this
are.
show.
We are.
Oh,
we
him
absolutely
and
are.
Drew. We have
So-
a guy on our show that's like an
Kick the-
encyclopedia
kick
like
Door
yourself.
in, Ben. Kick the door in. Go right into it.
Kick the
And
door
by
in.
the way,
Yes.
watching the opening, it was nice to see that so many of my friends have been on this show too. So that was cool. I was like, oh, okay, I'm in good company here.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And we'll make sure that you make the reel for next season for this one.
Cool and fucking groovy, baby. All right.
Right.
What
All right, so
part
let's-
of my career or personal life do you want to talk about today?
Well,
Well-
Jags told me to kick the door in right away. So I'm going to go right into it. So as you said backstage, you are gay, which is awesome. Freddie Mercury.
Yes. Yes.
Freddie Mercury.
Yes.
How did you guys meet?
I gotta
First
know
of
the
all?
whole
Like,
story.
how did this come about? Like that? That's
How the hell did you bag Freddie Mercury?
First of all, he bagged me. Thank you very much.
yeah.
Meaning it was his idea, not mine. Freddie was in New York. I was doing off Broadway and nightclub work all around New York City, and Freddie came in from London right when Bohemian Rhapsody was coming out to promote it. So he was on local television in New York. He was doing interviews for different networks from New York. Now in New York City in the middle and late 1970s, there were so many places to be naughty. I could fill 2 hours just mentioning the names of the places. And Studio 54 was, of course, one of those places.
Yeah.
Studio 54 was as wild as you've ever heard stories told about it. Yes, it was that and more. Where else can you walk into a nightclub and have a mound of cocaine on every table waiting for you for your pleasure? So Freddie and I met in a place, just so I don't get sued by people who are associated with any one place, a place like Studio 54. And we were both drinking and smoking dope and doing cocaine. And he was, I'm assuming, lonely. He wasn't the huge name yet he became. And there's a wife. Look at that, right behind Jack.
That's not my wife. That's my roommate.
Shh. Shh. Divorce papers in the South come out for less than that. Shh.
Yeah, that is not my wife.
All right.
Okay, and you understand that woman, whoever she is going to sock you right in the jaw for the way you just said that.
That's fine.
Because your entire tone was, I wouldn't nail that. My wife's better looking than that. So send your letters to Jags DeVille, care of this station. We started talking. He was enormously good looking. He how do I put this? He reeked of sex, meaning he reeked of hi Richard. Wow. Nice to see you too, Richard. He just reeked of sexuality and sex and pheromones and testosterone. And I found him to be very masculine. There are people out there who like live to hear about his sex life, and they've contacted me through the years, and they want, blow by blow, no pun intended, discussions of what it was like to interact with him on a sexual level.
I mean, Jags might want that, but I'm just to get
you're,
to the
you're good.
point.
You're good.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll say this. Naked, he was as good looking as you thought he would be. He was as hot in bed as you thought he would be. And the nicest part, yes, there is something nicer than that. After our encounter was over, rather than dismissing me or like, well, had a great time, leave now. Did you have a good time? Is there anything we need to do to make sure you had a good time? How far away from here do you live? Do you need money to get home safely? He was so concerned for my pleasure, my safety, because we're talking, 4:00 in the morning in New York City. He was so human about it afterwards. Yeah, what we did was hot and fantasy fulfilled kind of thing. But what sticks with me, thank you, Richard. What sticks with me is how nice he was. He took something that was pornographic and then made it real and nice. And yes, I can when pressed tell you about the sex, but while that's a happy memory for me that I sometimes enjoy thinking about when I'm all alone, if you ask me about him, what stays with me was how nice he was. And it was his energy that took naughty night in New York City in the wee small hours and turned it into something memorable, human, and, forgive a stupid word, lovely.
That's not a stupid word. Not a stupid word at all.
So that's the event.
I mean, when we were backstage and you brought it up, I kind of was like, wow. Freddie Mercury.
He's not the only celebrity I've ever played with. I think the reason people go like Freddie Mercury is me. Like, you got Freddie Mercury? Like as though I'm somehow not on his level, like he was up here and he looked down at you, and well, yes, at one point he was looking down at me, but that's besides the point.
I think that's an innuendo.
For me, it's just cool because it's like, obviously I'm not gay, but like I grew up on Queen, and like Queen was like a staple in my fucking house.
Sure.
Yep.
And like everybody's always put Freddie Mercury on this, like, giant pedestal, and I do too. He's probably one of the greatest performers that ever fucking lived. He
was an incredible showman and talented. And
as far as like musicianship, he's one of the best. You put him up there with him and David Bowie and Elton John, like they were fucking musicians. They were showmen. They could do fucking everything, and that I respect. Like that shit is fucking amazing.
He knew how to please. He was a great dancer. He had great energy, and I hear that on stage he was even better. No, I admire Freddie's talent and Queen as a group. It wasn't just Freddie; it's all those people were as songwriters, as musicians. Folks who are watching who are fans of Queen, you have no idea how long it took to put Bohemian Rhapsody together. That wasn't recorded all in one long take. That's weeks and weeks and weeks of doing stuff and then editing it together. It is one of the most brilliant tracks I think was ever recorded.
Oh yeah, that album. Entire album. Yeah.
So meeting him right then, when all of that was happening for him, like right then, I think I got Bohemian Rhapsody 10 days before I met him. It had just come out in this country.
So you already knew who he was prior to me.
Of course. It wasn't a random, well, you're a buck-toothed Middle Eastern guy from England. I don't know who you are.
So, I mean, we, Jags wanted me to kick the door down. We kicked the door down, but I really kind of want to know what got you interested in show business. And I say show business because you've done everything, as Jar said, as a jazz singer, comedian, radio host, a historian, actor, producer, writer, best-selling author, Emmy Award winner, Grammy nominated. What got you started on that path?
Well, thanks for that list. My nipples are hard now.
Nice. Mine are always hard because they're pierced, but
okay.
I did not know that.
now I'm happy all over. Thank you for that, Ben.
You are entirely welcome.
God,
no, Ben, gotta watch out for Ben. I can already tell Ben is trouble in a happy kind of way.
Been in trouble. Trust me, I've known this man for like 7 years and we've toured together and he's trouble.
Yay. What got me into show business? I was born. I've known since I was 2 years old that show business was the only thing I was going to be interested in, as far as working and occupation. And we are, all of us, every single one of us, born with a God-given talent, or 2 or 5 or 7.
Lucky.
Most people are unaware they have it, or if they're aware they're having it, they're afraid of it, or they don't want to be different. It's a very old cliche that success in show business comes with a price. Certainly it did. You give up years and years of your life to get somewhere. And being different means, in my case, I was thrown out of my house at 15. And there I was, and it was because I was in love with a boy. My parents and his parents tried to break it up. And I was sent away. Didn't stop us. We were together for 47 years. Wow. He passed away he passed away 5.5 years ago.
That's awesome.
We never got to live together. It was a very strange situation. He married wealthy women. He produced a boy and a girl, and they're my stepkids. And I have 2 grandchildren from those folks. In fact, I have a grandson, 19 years old. I feel very, very ancient.
Wow.
My nipples are hard, but I feel very, very ancient. And I was on a stage for the first time at 4. I was put on a stage, an amateur thing in Brooklyn. They put a beret on my head and they penciled in a French mustache. And I sang Dites-moi from South Pacific, the musical, Rodgers and Hammerstein. Yep. So the very first thing I sang in French, which was, well, okay, that's different. But by the time I was 15, I was in professional show business and doing dinner theater. At 16, I made my first movie with Peter Fonda. At 17, I was in my first off-Broadway musical, starring in it. At 18, I was working at the Playboy Club. So great ambition. Conquering my fear of being different, because none of my blood relatives speak to me. None of them.
Right.
Because I didn't follow their mold. They're embarrassed that I'm gay. They're embarrassed that I would go on your show and talk about it.
Even to this day?
I didn't marry a woman, produce the 2.3 children, and live in a house with a picket fence in Long Island and follow the mold. And as far as I was concerned, that paradigm was pretty moldy already. It certainly wasn't for me.
Right.
And I don't regret, being Geoffrey Mark, hard work, tremendous ambition, God-given talent, being Jeff the person. I love everybody. I try to spread love. My life's ambition is to make people happy, to help relieve them of their woes and troubles. And if I can have some good friends along the way and eat some delicious food and get laid once in a while, yay.
Excellent. Well, I will say you are part of our family now.
Absolutely.
And you are part of mine, all 3 of you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Where am I going to find 3 so completely different people who are intelligent and talented in their own right and accept me for who I am? Cheers to you guys.
And cheers to you. Mine's going to hide in the screen, but it's there. That's because
I've heard that sentence before, my friend.
Do you feel it?
Anyway. So
you ask a question or I take over. Those are your choices.
I got a question.
Yes, Jags.
What was the Playboy Club like? Because I've heard so many stories, and like to meet somebody who is actually there is fucking cool.
I was there in the late 70s. What was it like? It's not exactly what I think you'd be expecting. And this is the New York Playboy Club.
Right.
The one Hef went to a lot was the Chicago Playboy Club because he was still living in Chicago back then. He didn't visit New York very much. He had an antipathy actually for that club. I think because he knew there was so much stuff going on there of which he did not approve. Because at the New York Playboy Club, the bunnies were turning tricks. The showgirls were turning tricks. The woman who's supposed to be in charge of all those ladies is called the bunny mother. And there's a bunny hutch where they change clothes and could relax in between shifts and shows. And she was taking bribes. She made more money from taking bribes so the girls could ply their resources and make more money than they ever made from being at the club or for being in the show. Wow. There was Laney's room upstairs for Laney Kazan. And Laney worked a lot at the New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles Playboy clubs. And I think there was also a Miami one where she appeared. There was a wonderful comedian, probably none of you are old enough to remember, Professor Irwin Corey. But he was a baggy pants. Nothing he said made sense. That was made it so funny. Is, what color is your shirt? And 6 minutes later, he didn't stop talking, but you never found out what color his shirt was. That was his gift. And he and I would hang out. There was a buffet of food for everybody who worked there, whether you were waiting on tables or you were on the stage. And I learned a lot about comedy from him. So it was an interesting place. It wasn't a bunch of swingers like you'd think. I don't know if you're old enough to remember what a leisure suit is, but most of our clients were from New Jersey wearing Sears leisure suits, thinking they were just hip. And then you'd be backstage and the girls are like, there was a topless show. And you'd look, through the curtain and these men are beating off under their table in public because they're looking at women's breasticles. And I found that kind of disgusting. Right. But yeah. But I loved working there. The food was great. And I learned, anywhere I could go and learn something about my craft or the business, and between all the celebrities who sang there or did comedy there, and Irwin Corey, bless his heart, he lived to be 100. It just added to my package of being able to perform and entertain people. But the wildness was the men paying for the girls who worked there to, do whatever they wanted. Right. But other than that, and that the servers were dressed in these bunny outfits with their, cleavage hanging right in your face, these guys paid an awful lot of money to be members of the club. And then on top of that, whatever they drank, whatever they ate. Other than that, it was like any other nightclub I worked in back then. I think that's why Hef didn't like the place. The place wasn't up to his standards. And it just
beating out in public kind of can lower class a little bit.
And the man who produced the show I was in at the Playboy Club also produced a show at a place called La Vie en Rose, which was a higher class place actually on 3rd Avenue in New York. And one evening, it just reminded me of this. His regular guy was unavailable. So he said, "Come have dinner with me, baby," because he was French. And we went. There was a place called PJ Clark's, which at that moment in time, everybody in show business went there for drinks and hamburgers and hero sandwiches and whatever you had. When we got there and they were all filled up, they couldn't seat us, even though he was a name back then, and I wasn't one yet. "Oh, baby, some friends of mine over there." So we ended up having dinner with Jackie Onassis, Truman Capote, and Andy Warhol.
Wow.
Wow.
And
that must have been a conversation.
no, it really wasn't.
No.
Andy was so stoned on something. I'm not entirely sure he blinked the entire time we were eating there. Truman had heard that the producer's man friend was enormously well endowed, which he was. And he wanted to talk about that with Peter. Peter Jackson was the producer. Peter wanted nothing to do with discussing anybody's penis in public. And poor Mrs. Onassis is sitting there listening to this. And bless her heart, had the grace to turn to me and want to talk about my career.
Oh, wow.
So she was asking me questions about what I was doing and why and how I came to be there. Everybody else was kind of stoned, uncomfortable. It's why places like Studio 54 were so popular. You didn't have to talk. You could go there and drink and drug and fuck, and nobody knows because press wasn't allowed inside. And but sitting at dinner with a lady, and Mrs. Onassis certainly was a lady, you couldn't behave that way.
Right.
And this was a restaurant, not a nightclub. I wish I had great tittle tattle to tell you from that thing. I could write a whole book about that if it were the event is true, but if it were true that wonderful things were said,
right?
Oh, I'd read a whole book about it. But
which you have written books.
Oh,
about,
many
about some famous people.
And the story of that is in my upcoming autobiography, The Devil Was Born in Brooklyn, and the title is trademarked. Don't fuck with me.
But you've written books about Lucille Ball, Ethel Merman, and Ella Fitzgerald, to name a few.
Two books
about Ella. That's right.
And I've written a cookbook with Kathy Garber, the Family Affair cookbook. For those of you who remember, Family Affair was a sitcom in the 60s.
Yeah.
And then I've ghost written several books for other people.
And actually, we had Kathy on at the beginning of this season. Amazing lady.
Well, she's still beautiful.
Yes.
She is older than I, but still beautiful. She still has a career. Kathy and I have one of those relationships we talked before the show started, folks, about not discussing religion or politics. Kathy and I cannot discuss politics at all.
Right.
We are literally polar opposites politically. And I'm not saying my views are better than hers or her views are better than mine, but if we discuss it, it gets a little ugly. So I'm her friend minus those discussions. And when we're together and politics come up, I excuse myself.
Right.
Safe.
Yeah. But you had Don Most. Donnie is a wonderful guy, wonderful singing talent. You had Jeremy Miller on. I adore Jeremy. Yes. I adore that man and his wife. What two just lovely,
amazing people,
thoughtful, amazing people.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that the feeling is mutual.
Yeah. We had him on the show, and then he did a convention here in Massachusetts that we were at. It's a funny story. So we were across the street from the convention it was down the street, getting Dunkin' Donuts. And I look over my shoulder, and here comes Jeremy in his trench coat into Dunkin' Donuts,
yes,
to get his coffee. And I'm like, oh, hey, how you doing? Because we had never physically met. It was a lot of this, because his talk show is actually on our network. So we have a lot of conversing. So anyways, he leaves, and I get in the truck, and I'm driving, and I cross the street, and I go, do you want to ride back to the hotel? And he's like, yeah. So we get back there, and his wife happened to be outside, and she looks and sees him getting out of a truck, and she's like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, no, this is the guys I was telling you. And she's like, oh, I thought he was getting into strangers' vehicles again.
Jeremy is such an open soul. He is so filled with love for other people, and that I just adore him. And he's good looking, and he's so talented. and he married a woman who is as good looking and talented as sweet as he is.
Right.
He's a chef, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
a celebrity
so
chef.
Andy can cook. So goddamn.
Andy, yeah, he can cook too. Yes, that's actually a song, boys. From
As a comedian, like, have you ever had to deal with hecklers? And what would you say was the best way to deal with such? I always find this stuff interesting with comedians.
I have only been heckled for real and for serious by two people in my life. One was my father.
Oh shit.
And we'll get to that in a second. And the other one was, I was working on a cruise ship as a comedian and singer, and I was in Aruba, and the cruise director came over to me and sat down, and I was just having coffee. I love coffee. Send me some of that coffee your sponsor makes. I want to taste it. It looks delicious. Send me some. That's my fee for doing this today. I want
There
coffee.
you go. Some coffee. Let Leo know.
And he said, congratulations. I said, why? He said, you're a cruise director. I said, I'm a what? Turns out, this is for Holland America Lines. Turns out that they were having some sort of confab, and every single cruise director in the company was meeting on a ship in Mexico. So for that week, all the ships in the Holland American Line were being run, the entertainment, by the assistant cruise directors. Well, there was one ship that had no assistant cruise director, and I had done so well for them that they flew me. He said, go pack your bags. You're leaving right now. And they flew me from Aruba to San Diego into a hotel suite where I could, catch my breath. And then the next day, a 10-day Mexican Riviera cruise where I was the cruise director. And there was a clack of women on that. I don't know where they were from, wherever they're from. I hope they're well, and I hope they stay there. Like, I don't want to interact with them ever again. But came up to me after the first day and said, we don't like you. We want a studly, handsome young man being the cruise director, and we don't like your sparkles, and we don't like your jewelry, and we don't like your jokes. And they just refused to laugh.
Wow.
Just refused. They refused to be entertained. But the
Sounds like my ex-wife.
Yeah, that's why
Oh,
she's
yeah.
next.
I was going to say, it sounds to me like they needed to get laid.
I didn't want to say that. I did, however, hear that they were using N-Dust as a vagina preparation. Because but that's just rumor,
Can't see what jokes they didn't like.
Right.
No, on stage, especially on cruise ships, I never use four-letter words. I don't know who's there. There are children.
Oh yeah, running
I've
all
done
over
really
the
well
place.
on cruise ships, so there's always a full house. And these days, they broadcast your thing all over the ship anyway. No, I would I say with you guys, or I would say at a party, or at the Playboy Club, or in Las Vegas. But no, in many places, unless it's an adults only thing, I don't. In fact, Ruta Lee, I don't know if you know who Ruta Lee is.
Yes.
Ruta Lee, okay.
We had Ruta Lee show too.
Okay. Ruta and I have been friends for 30 years. And there was a Palm Springs International Comedy Festival that I was co-producing and hosting a lot of the events. And we did a panel on women who are funny with scripts, not with stand-up material. And it was Dawn Wells, my dear, 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 dear late friend from Gilligan's Island, who played Marianne on Gilligan's Island. And Ruta and Allison Arngrim from Little House on the Prairie, and Joyce Bulifant, who, if you ever watched The Match Game in the 70s, or she was all over everything. She played Murray's wife on the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Yep.
So, okay. And she's still with us, and she's so lovely, and yay. And I asked them, what happens when a script calls for you to say something naughty or blue? And I just added in, I have never said on a stage a four-letter word ever. And Ruta said, oh, for Christ's sakes, Geoffrey, you're over 40. Go out tonight and say the word fuck. It's time for you. So that night, I was the opening act for two much, much bigger comedians. People who only do comedy. We have a different ha-ha hats that I do. And I told them what Ruta said. And I said, my answer to all of that is what happened to Jack Benny. Now, do you guys remember who Jack Benny was?
Mhm.
I'm seeing some not quite
No.
sure faces.
Yep.
Okay. Jack Benny, just for Jeremy and anybody else who's watching who doesn't know, a vaudeville star of the 20s, a radio star of the 30s and 40s, a movie star of the 30s and 40s, a television star of the 50s and 60s, and he was a star till the day he died.
Yep.
And he was as big a name as Bob Hope or Lucille Ball or
Yep.
those kinds of people.
That caliber.
He was going to be performing in Las Vegas. And, you know, he was friends with Buddy Hackett, as was I. And Buddy just, you know, fuck. That's his act. And he felt he had to compete. And he told the people, you know, I was told that if I'm going to make money, because why else would I be here but for money? But I have to use 4-letter words. I'm now going to use my first 4-letter word. Affair. And then he never mentioned the dirty words again and did his act. Because having an affair with someone was about as dirty as he would get on the stage.
Okay.
And going back to my father was an evil, cruel human being who was terribly jealous of my talent and success. And once he'd seen me do my act, he'd come back and then shout out my punchlines before I got to them, interrupt my singing. And then my mother would stand up. You know, it's his father that's really the one that's got all the talent. And I eventually had to ban them from coming to see me.
Wow.
Well, these are the same motherfuckers who threw me out. So, you know.
Right.
Hasta la vista, baby.
You know, as a writer, and not just in books, you've written some things for television, and one of the things
a lot of things for television.
One of the things I really wanted to touch on, because we lost this gentleman in the past week, was Behind the Fame with Mary Tyler Moore and Bob Newhart.
Yeah, I co-wrote and co-produced. No, that's not true. I co-produced and wrote that show.
Right.
And it changed my life, as a matter of fact. I was lucky enough to get both Marsha Wallace, who played his secretary, and Jack Riley, who played Mr. Carlin, his nuttiest client. They allowed me to come in their homes with a crew and interview them on camera.
Wow.
I think I was 20 minutes into interviewing Jack, where on camera he said, "You're wonderful. Would you have dinner with me?" And I'm not entirely sure that I didn't go to dinner with him. I just dismissed the crew after we were done, and we went to dinner. Like with my partner, I became Jack's secret. So for 6 or 7 or 8 years, Jack and I were privately, I don't know, what do you call a couple who's a couple, but they're not a couple in public? And my partner knew about it and approved of it, because we were 3,000 miles apart.
Right.
Jack changed my life. Jack got me into being a member of the Friars Club. Jack got me into the Army's Army, which had, you know, every major comedian in the world there. Jack promoted me. Jack introduced me. And we did a nightclub act together, which was very successful for a while. The while being Jack got MS, and then his health just stopped us from being able to perform together. So that documentary changed my life.
Right.
About Mr. Newhart specifically. And I wrote about this on Facebook the other day. I knew him for years. Enormously talented.
Mm-hmm.
And a huge success. I mean, only Lucille Ball has had more successful sitcoms, one after another, as Bob Newhart did. Right. But Bob was not terribly warm to Jack or to me. Jack, once the show was over, from 77 or 78 forward, spent the rest of his life being really grateful to Bob. he got the opportunity to embody Mr. Carlin, which made him a bigger star than he had been before the show. So we ran into Bob a lot. It was polite. I mean, he wasn't nasty or mean or anything, but it was polite. There's a difference between polite and warm. He wasn't funny. He didn't seem to laugh much unless Rickles was there. If Don Rickles was there, of course, we were all laughing our asses off.
Right.
But it's the only time I saw Bob relax and let himself go and enjoy whatever moment he was in. The last time I saw Bob was at Jack Riley's memorial service. And Bob came over to me, but first of all, shocked me. Gave me that Midwestern half hug that they want to hug you, they don't know how, so they're giving you their shoulder a little bit.
Right.
That shocked me. And then he whispered in my ear, "I'm really sorry for your loss." I had no idea he knew that Jack and I were a thing.
Mm.
So that's my Bob Newhart show, and I'm sticking to it.
Awesome.
But Marsha Wallace and I were very close friends also. Suzanne Plachette and I were very close friends. So that show means a lot to me.
Right. It was one of the shows that I watched.
May I give you a fast Suzanne Plachette story?
Sure.
Why not?
It's your show.
No, baby, it's your show. I'm just a clown who's here to make everybody happy. And boys, I can do it. So, come to the West Coast. My father passed away 3 or 4 days before Buddy Hackett passed away. And my friends at the Friars Club really pushed, go to his funeral. Get up from, do you know what Shiva is? Any of you know the Jewish religion at all?
No,
See, I'm also Jewish. That makes me even more of a target.
Right.
Sitting Shiva when father, son, brother, sister, spouse, or child dies. For 1 week, the mourning is called Shiva, S-H-I-V-A.
Mm-hmm.
You don't go anywhere, and people come into your house with food. They answer your phone for you. They clean your house. They feed you. You just sit there and talk about your lost person, and you laugh and you cry. And it's actually very mentally healthy to do that. They said, get up, go to the funeral. So I went to the funeral, and Susie was married to Tom Poston at the time. And they arrived just as I arrived. And she walked over to me and kissed me and then whispered in my ear, "I heard about your father. I'm so sorry. Coming here must be so painful for you. Don't do it unless you can handle it." You can't buy that kind of consideration or love. She had a mouth like a truck driver. She knew all the words, but she was a real, loving human being, and I loved being her friend.
That's awesome. Wow.
So change the subject. Let's talk about something happy.
Yeah, we all just got sentimental real quick there.
Yeah.
we gotta get into the whole John Lennon thing. We
Okay.
gotta do it.
Okay. Folks, what they're referring to is the following story. I had a girl, I still have her, I guess, a girlfriend who's like my sister. I've known her since high school. In fact, she knew my Joel too. And she was living on 72nd Street in Manhattan in an apartment building that was across the street and then down the street from the best known apartment building in New York City, the Dakota. And it was kind of a cool evening, and I didn't want to just walk a couple of miles to get to her house. I took the subway. The subway at least then it did. I don't know what the subways do anymore. Let me off on Central Park West and 72nd Street. That's the corner where I'm blocking my own face. Don't do that. That's the corner where the Dakota building sits.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in those days, the Dakota didn't have a front door on 72nd Street. It had this archway with a driveway so that if a limousine was picking you up, they wouldn't pick you up on the street. They pick you up in the courtyard. There was this lovely little parkish courtyard. And then as you walked into the left, that's where the front door and the doorman were. So I'm just minding my own business. I'm a little cold and I'm hungry. And it's 10 o'clock at night, more or less. I forget the exact hour. And just as my foot hits the arch, bang, bang, bang. And I looked this way to see that motherfucker with his gun over John. John is already dead. Except it was so dark, just how people are sometimes moving. I could see the assassin beautifully because there were these little light bulby things all over the. But if you were under one of them, you're all lit up. If you're not, you're in the darkness. So I knew someone had been killed right before my eyes. I knew who the killer was. I couldn't recognize who was on the ground. It could have been someone making a delivery. I didn't know. I certainly didn't know that Yoko Ono was all the way against the back wall in terror. But I ran like hell. I ran across to Phyllis's apartment, and I had a key to her place. I let myself in. She was taking a bath, turned the TV on, and in New York, Channel 9, what used to be called WOR-TV, was the first TV station to cut in and say, this has happened. That's how I found out that what I saw was John Lennon's assassination and not just one of the 8 million people in New York City.
Random killing. Yeah.
I got very upset. I went into the bathroom. I sat on my toilet while Phyllis took her bath, and she kept me calm and calmed me down. And when I got calmed down, I began to feel guilty. It's like the first thing I should have done when I got to her apartment was to call 911, report the killing, let them know what was happening, and let them know that I could identify the guy. I saw his face brilliantly. I didn't. Out of fear. In the moment, I didn't want to get shot because the motherfucker looked up at me looking at him. Our eyes met. It's like I was out of there faster than Pablo Nurmi. And you guys can all Google Pablo Nurmi and ask, why did I bring up his name? Look it up yourselves. I'm tired of explaining everything to you people.
Man, now I have to look up stuff after the show.
He was an Olympic runner who won a lot of medals, but like in the 30s of the last century. Years later, I told that story to Sean Lennon, and Sean said, don't feel guilty. He was already dead. Someone had already called. By the time you got across the street, the doorman had already called the police. He was captured on site. They didn't run after him. He was there. Yeah. He said, you couldn't have helped my father. You couldn't have helped my mother. You could have gotten hurt. So, on behalf of the family, stop being guilty. Which makes me feel good. I've never spoken to Yoko about it or Julian, but I did spoke to Sean, and probably not my finest moment. But then again, how many of us were there watching?
Right. I think human nature, if anybody else was there, probably would have been the same to run, especially if somebody's got a gun.
Especially
in the late 1970s. In the late 1970s in New York City. And I've had this conversation with other people who lived there at that moment. If you were a female or a gay man, you had to be very careful what was going on around you. You always had to know who was coming up behind you, because women were getting assaulted and gay men were getting beaten and killed left and right, like it was, let's have a ginger ale and a pizza and kill that fag, like it was a sport.
Right.
So I was very aware everywhere I walked, and back then I was still token, so I was probably a little stoned too. Mm-hmm. And I'm clean and sober 35 years, but I support anybody who wants to get stoned. God bless you.
Congrats on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Walking on streets, and I won't make any street walking jokes. I'm going to be serious. It was not safe back then. It got safer, and I understand now it's not safe again. But in my fantasies, I wished I could have had more courage in the moment, but I didn't. And that's what I have to live with. I have to accept that I was, 20 or 21 when this happened?
Right.
And I did not have the wisdom I have today.
Right. Wow.
Well, to
So
get
back
us out
to
of
another
the dark
somber
stuff.
moment.
Yeah. Tell us about a
look,
performance or production that you.
Which one do I hear? Listen to. You're both asking
What was
questions.
that?
You were both asking questions at the same time.
Oh, go ahead, Jags.
No,
This is
I
what-
was just saying we had to touch upon that. So let's go on to the next.
Oh,
thing.
hell yeah. No, definitely.
This is what happens, folks, when you have a four-way. Everyone tries to be in control, and
We got to figure out
Jeffrey,
the chef.
hold on. Jeffrey, is this your first four-way?
no.
Ooh. But it's your best.
So far, we haven't had a climax yet. No, I was a wild guy. In my youth, despite being in love, my boy's name was Joel Kabik, 47 years together. But because he married and because he was hiding from me, from the world, and there are good reasons for it, and I don't want to, it would be another downer.
Right.
But I went out and had as good a time as I could because I was young and horny and healthy and great looking, and why not? I didn't know that AIDS was around the corner, and I don't know how to this day I'm HIV negative, but I am, knock on wood. So I was a wild man. Sure, orgies and sex parties and bathhouses, and I could tell you some pornographic stories that happened to me. I just don't know if they'd be terribly interesting or believable.
Right. Now, you have your own radio
And he goes
show.
right by it. Okay, there we go.
Well, no. And the reason I did that is I want to bring up, you have your own radio show.
Geoffrey Mark Plays Ella. It's on several stations around the country, and it's available on every platform there is. Every week on a theme, I play you Ella Fitzgerald's music and then give you the inside story of how it happened, why it's important to her mythos, or, how that song became something else. And we're in our third season. I've taken a few weeks off because I developed in my right hand here and through my fingers, gout in my right hand.
Oh, no.
And let's just say it was enormously painful. And thank God I do other things with my left hand.
Congratulations.
He's a lefty.
And then to this moment, I've been dealing with having bronchitis, which is why my voice is a little rough today. Gotcha. But so yeah, I've been taking a little break from the show just to get better. But we're going to start having some celebrity guest hosts on who will share their favorite Ella songs and why they're favorites. And, eventually we'll run out of topics, but hopefully we'll have, more than 100 shows by then that people can just continue enjoying. Later in the fall, I am starting a new show called The World of Geoffrey Mark, where I will have conversations with my celebrity friends.
So, and that's where I think I was going with that. So I know you have, this show, the new show, folks, follow him, subscribe, like what he does. And I should have mentioned this sooner, but all his information is in the show notes up above, down below, depending on where you're watching or listening to us. But he's got all kinds of great stuff coming out, and he might even tell you some of his pornographic stuff on a different show.
I'll be happy to tell you now if you have time, but just I wanted to get all the plugs in.
It's your show. You can plug in.
Okay. I'll tell you one pornographic story. This is earlier in the 70s than John Lennon. I was working in nightclubs. I was in between Broadway shows. So I was office temping to just pay the rent. And the office temp people sent me to, may they rest in peace, the old World Trade Center twin buildings.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got there early and I had to go to the bathroom. So there was a men's room down below where the subway stops were, because every subway in town went through it so people could go to work there. And there were some men who decided that was a good place to perform fellatio on each other. And I was watching. I was just watching. Let's put it that way. And all of a sudden, this 6'4" African-American cop walks in with the big billy club and banging it against the wall. What do you assholes think you're doing? And bang, 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 and get the fuck out of here. Da, 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 da. And he puts his hand on my shoulder and he says, "Except for you." I went, "Oh shit." And he went to the door and locked it from the inside. He said, "And now it's my turn." And I didn't think it was a good idea to tell him no.
Well, officer.
And let's say that a good time was had by all, no harm, no foul.
Well,
And-
it ends happily.
And Jeffrey got a get out of jail free card after that.
Absolutely. The policeman is your friend.
Oh man.
When you're not out partying like this and all this crazy stuff, like what does Jeffrey do to like relax and just be like, you know what?
You want to talk
turn
to
off the
Jeff the
world.
person. You've been talking to Geoffrey Mark. Now you want to talk to Jeff the person.
Yeah.
Two different people. I don't have jewelry on. I don't have sparkles on. I'm usually half naked because nobody's here. I still read comic books. I read. Thank goodness for all of the platforms out there. They can watch classic movies and classic. I can see all my friends. I can visit with my friends every night who have passed away. Then I have a collection of about 10,000 television shows with the original commercials as they were first presented. I can watch that if I feel like it. I cook. I meet friends for meals. I live in the desert. I go into Los Angeles and see friends and walk red carpets and go to industry events. And I'm a big supporter of the Hollywood Museum. Donnell Dadigan, who runs it, is an incredible woman. I'm thrilled that one of my costumes is in the museum and that I keep getting invited to walk the red carpet and be a part of it because I loved Debbie Reynolds, but Debbie couldn't pull it off. Somehow Donnell pulled off having that museum for costumes, and she got the fucking Batmobile there. She's got Hannibal Lecter's actual torture room in the basement. What she has there is incredible. And then Mel's Drive-In or Mel's Diner is part of the building. And it's right there in the heart of Hollywood, just down the street from Grauman's Chinese and the theater where they have the Oscars. So it's really, if you want to like really smell and touch and taste Hollywood, go to that museum. And if one of you four comes to the West Coast, I will get you in for free and give you a private tour.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Now my nipples are hard.
Right?
I love equality. Let's have everyone who's watching us just go like this. We shall all get our nipples hard and smile.
I'm a little older. Hold on, they're down here.
Say, I don't believe that about you one tiny little bit. You're the guy that's got the muscles.
Well, 37
True.
years in construction.
I think Kelly said hello real quick. It came and went, but thank you.
Yep. Yeah, I popped that up on the screen. I saw it.
No, it's nice. It's nice.
Yeah.
Kelly Matlack. Thank you, Kelly. It's nice to know you're looking at us.
Yeah. I mean, we've had a ton of viewers. Nobody really in the chat. I think they're just all sitting back on. What?
Kelly's my personal assistant. And yesterday was her birthday, by the way.
Okay, here we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear
Kelly.
Kelly. Happy birthday to you. Yay!
And you had Geoffrey Mark sing happy birthday to you. Look at that. Only on this show would that happen.
I know.
That's because he's part of the family now, folks.
In
case you missed it.
I sang through my bronchitis just for Kelly.
You did. So, I mean, we're over an hour, but we still have time for
I'll stay as long as you want me. So the books I've read,
Ben's getting scared.
straight for everybody. 2 books about Ella Fitzgerald.
Yep.
The most recent one is Ella, a biography of a legendary Ella Fitzgerald. The Lucy book is, you're welcome, Kelly. The Lucy book is a compendium of Miss Ball's television career from live TV till she died, with a foreword by Steve Allen and a foreword by Lucy Arnaz and Desi Jr. The new Lucy book is coming out next year with new interviews, a new foreword by Fran Drescher, and we're adding in her movies and her radio show. I'm adding in her radio shows and her films. So hopefully it'll be her entire career between two covers with lots and lots of photos. It'll be a much bigger book. Ethel Merman, the biggest star on Broadway, was about the legendary, the greatest female musical comedy star on Broadway, star of 15 hit musicals, who introduced over 40 songs that became standards on Broadway. And then my autobiography is coming out next year, and it's going to sizzle because I tell everything.
Right. I just want to touch back on the Ella Fitzgerald. In addition to the regular books, I was told there'd be a deluxe edition with two CDs.
Yes. What I did was Ella worked for 3 or 4 or 5 different recording studios through the years, different labels. They're all either owned or controlled by Universal Music now. So all of her music is under one umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to them and I said, look, this book is coming out. I would like to include some music in it as a deluxe version. And they thought about it. They thought it was a good idea, as did the Ella Fitzgerald Foundation, which I'm happily a part of as a friend and a supporter. And but you said, why don't you come up with something new? Because I've written the album notes and chosen the songs for a dozen Ella Fitzgerald CDs. And I was just going to have them, let's pick one I've already done and put it in the book. They said, no, do something brand new. It would cost us the same amount of money. So one CD is all of her studio work from 1935 to 1990, what I think is the best of the best, sequenced in just the way she would have sequenced them. Because towards the end of her life, I was choosing the songs and sequencing them for her in her concerts because she was getting old. Mm-hmm. The other CD is the same vision, but it's her live concerts from the 1940s into the early 80s. And again, chosen just the way she would want them. So for people who buy the deluxe edition, those 2 CDs are in the book.
And the best part about it, the proceeds benefit the Ella Fitzgerald Charitable Foundation,
which is a wonderful organization run by dear friends of mine. And I wholeheartedly support it.
Right. So I wanted to make sure we touched on that so that people knew that there's more to what we've already discussed. I mean, we literally could sit here for 6 days.
Oh yeah, we haven't even discussed the shows I wrote and produced for television.
Right.
We haven't talked about my acting career really at all, or
right.
My work in summer stock, or the 100 celebrities I became very good friends with, most of whom are gone now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Bob Hope, please. Bob Newhart being the most recent one.
Right.
I never got to meet Bob Hope. I know his daughter, Linda, was a lovely woman. But no, happy back again. I know you're running out of time here. And,
no, I mean, I can go as long as I want.
Okay. I've heard that about you.
Yes. Yes. I'll just
That's what that little blue pill was for at the beginning. I didn't know.
Oh, you know what? You're so lucky I'm a guest and not sitting there with you, because I have answers. You guys give me such wonderful straight lines, and then 17 punchlines end up in my head, and I'll let that one go. But just be careful in the future.
So you've met and worked with such a variety of amazing people in Hollywood and Broadway. And is there anybody that you haven't worked with that you would like to work with?
Who's still alive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go with the alive part of it first.
Oh, and thank you, Mark, for your laughter at my wonderful comedy. God, that's a good question. This is bring up a controversy. I don't really care. I would love to work with Kevin Spacey.
Okay. Really? Interesting.
I know Kevin. I knew he was innocent. The BBC kept chasing after me. You know him, right? They wanted me to have words about, I said, Wait until he's made innocent, and then I'll talk to you. And I went to a show business event the day after he was found innocent, and BBC just was in my face. They wouldn't even let me get to the red carpet. I said, told you so. I told you this would happen this way. He's an amazing, amazing intellect and talent. And I would love to work with him. I would love to work with Tom Hanks on anything, just to work with Tom Hanks.
Right.
This part of my career, this part of my life, I think these last 2 books are going to be my last 2 books. I don't want to spend the remainder of my life behind the screen you're looking on the other side of. This is my screen, right? Yeah. I don't want to sit here for 8 hours or 10 hours a day looking at my screen. I want to be out there singing and telling jokes and meeting the fans and being with loved ones, because one reaches an age where almost every other day someone one loves goes away. Mm-hmm. So while I still have the health enough to do that, I want to go out there, be with people I love, meet all you wonderful fans out there who I think of all of you as friends, and make people happy. So there's discussions about Mark Price and I doing something together. There's discussions about my doing an album. Geoffrey Mark sings the Ella Fitzgerald songbook. We'll see what happens, because show business has changed drastically in the last 10 years, much more drastically since COVID. And all of the paradigms that you knew this is how it works, it doesn't work that way anymore. For instance, nobody goes to an audition anymore. It's all done from home. And every actor has to pay for a camera and a backdrop and lighting and makeup and do everything at home. They don't want to see you in person anymore. Right. It's like, how can you get the sense of someone unless you meet them in person? But I'm not the one doing the casting.
Not yet.
I am the luckiest. I might have been a good casting director. I have a good sense for it. I'm the luckiest son of a bitch on the planet. I met the love of my life when I was 13. I got into show business at 15. There are very few of my heroes I haven't had a chance to meet, socialize with, work with, love in some cases, and have sex with in a few cases. We'll bring up some other names next time, because there are more names you'd recognize. And you're going to go, you did that with him? Because again, you'll think he's way too good looking. No, I wasn't. He wasn't, and I'm just fine. I'm a very lucky man. As a human being, as Jeff, do I have my problems? Sure. Including bronchitis at the moment. Do I have a perfect life? Nobody has a perfect life.
Right.
You know, people's visions of celebrities, that we all live in a mansion, we all have a butler, we all have a pool in the backyard, and we're just sitting around drinking champagne and eating caviar all day. Yeah, I don't know anybody like that. The big tip top movie stars, the top of the top, have the mansions. And you know what? They're eating cornflakes, eating bologna, because they don't have to prove anything to anybody.
Right.
The rest of us work. The rest of us, I mean, this is my office. I'm not exactly living in a dump. There's Miss Emmy over there. I always figure out there, Miss Emmy.
Yep.
Right there.
I spotted that at the beginning of the show.
And then on the wall up here, I have my Grammy nomination, my Congressional Certificate of Special Recognition from United States Congress. I have a certificate of recognition from the California State Assembly. And that is not only for having had a very long career, because I celebrate 50 years in show business this year, but also for my charity work. And I'm very grateful that was recognized, but also hopefully that it will spur other people to do charity work of your choice.
Right. Giving back. Always.
Back. Well, if you don't give back, you don't deserve to have.
Right.
Folks,
I said giving back, not giving it from the back. Just saying.
Hey. We always end up back there.
Yeah, it's Jeffrey's fault.
If you don't give it from the back, you don't stay in relationships very long. Because in the gay world, there are about 400 million men who are in the baseball game of sex are catchers, and about 6 guys who are pitchers, and they're very busy making everybody else happy. Kelly is asking what my
I'm so
favorite.
glad we're learning about baseball today too.
You wouldn't think I'd be a baseball expert, and there it is.
There it is.
Kelly's asking what my favorite musical. Kelly, I assume you're meaning like being in a musical on stage. Which one I enjoyed doing the most? Different ones for different reasons. I did a production of Where's Charlie with Joel, where we in fact, the man who directed it died yesterday. We were allowed to take a speck of the script and do 10 minutes of physical business with it to stop the show. And creating that was one of my happiest moments in my life because we were doing it and it was with him. As far as a show being fun to do, I think a funny thing happened on the way to the forum because again, in summer stock, I was given the luxury of a director who, as it turns out, couldn't stand me because I was Jewish. Terrible, terrible anti-Semite, but appreciated my talent and let me explore things and expand things and cooperated with me. So I think those are the 2 favorite musicals I did. The favorite musical I did in New York was probably the Greenwich Village Follies. And my favorite on Broadway, because I only worked on one, was Bring Back Birdie with Cheetah Rivera and Donald O'Connor. And just to be in the same building with them and everybody else in the cast was amazing. So I hope, Kelly, I answered your question.
Well, if you did, awesome. If you didn't, oh well, because he's saying happy birthday to you, Kelly. So you can't get much more than that. I'm just going to say,
Well, if you look like Ben, you might get more than that. But under the circumstances, be satisfied.
Ben's got an in over in Hollywood. This is fantastic.
Not that Jeremy and Jags I would ever turn away.
Hey, it's okay.
Both very.
My wife would get mad at me. She would just be like, "God damn it!"
Rule number 1: never tell your wife.
Well, no. See, my wife would say how many zeros are attached to it.
And Ben, you can probably earn them. So, we'll talk after the show. I have this thing in my life, getting back to Jeff. All of my deep relationships have been with straight men who got bisexual for me, or who were bisexual but never acted out on it, or were just bisexual. I have rarely actually been in a relationship with a gay person. Usually that's a sexual relationship, but the deep love things. So married men and straight men, and they knock on my door every day. And they have since I was a kid. And my Joel was bisexual. So my whole life has been that. I don't know why. Someone once said, having straight men want to have sex with you, it's a gift. And I said, if it's a gift, give me the receipt and let me return it for something I can actually use.
Yes. I love it.
Because yes, you can have lots of one-night fun, but it's a very unhappy relationship if the person can't really commit to you. Joel did, but he still had his women, and I knew all about them. And Jack did. Why? I don't know, because women were throwing themselves. Jack Riley had Playboy bunnies and centerfold girls throwing themselves at him. I don't know why me. So, there's something special about me, and there are things about me I can figure out. And there are things about me I'll never really figure out, but I can accept that that's the way it is and then try to enjoy it. I am a huge believer in counting one's blessings. Being with you guys today is a blessing. I've been feeling like shit all week, and I did a show on Monday. I'm doing another one on Friday. In fact, I'm hosting on Friday for somebody who can't be there. And it's just fun to be Geoffrey Mark. Geoffrey Mark is a lovely, talented, really smart. I mean, my IQ is 163. It's ridiculous. Guy, and my looks, my talent, my intellect, all gifts from God. I did nothing to deserve them. What I can take a bow for is what I've done with them.
Right.
And I think the same is true for all of us. All three of you have found a niche in show business where you're entertaining people and using your good looks. You're all three good looking and you're all three smart. Yes, you are. Stop it. No phony bullshit here. You just say, thank you, sir, and I hand you the cash.
I have another.
Yes. It's a gift. It's a gift to all the folks who are watching. And that's what I live for.
Same with us, you know.
Oh,
being able to entertain people in all walks of everything that we do, and being able to sit up here and chat with people such as yourself. You know, I know we didn't touch a lot of like your career in acting and things like that, but I think what we did touch on hasn't really been talked about a lot in some of the interviews.
That's true. No, you guys asked good questions, and you made me, even before the show started, folks, we talked for about 10 minutes before the show started, because we're all in different places in the country doing this. They made me feel so welcome, so open, no flinching at my sexuality, no flinching at how I dress, no judgment. So I felt comfortable to say anything today, and I probably have.
Yeah. You know, and I mean, I can say right now, I never pass judgment on anybody for anything. I have a son who is bi. I have a daughter who is bi.
Well, if he looks like you, send him over to me.
And he's a chef too, and he cooks really good.
And I love to eat.
So, you know, I have family members that are either gay or bi or whatever. I'm okay with that. I mean,
all right. So Jags and Jeremy, do you feel the same way?
Oh yeah, dude. I've got two transgender kids, and one that's unsure of themselves. So, love is love in this house.
My co-host on my show is very much gay, and I've got another cousin that's gay and another cousin that's trans. So it doesn't bother me, and it doesn't bother them that I'm straight, and we all good.
No, at the bottom line behind all of that is, if you're happy with you and the person you're with is making you happy, that's all that matters.
Well, first of all, God bless all three of you. And the children we're talking about here are blessed to have parents who are supportive.
Let them know that.
Only thing about Jags that bothers me about his being straight is that the holes in his ears are just a little too small. Otherwise, boy, could we have some fun.
Oh my gosh.
But the hole under his nose isn't. With that, I'm going to bring us to our last question so we can let this amazing gentleman.
Well, I embarrassed everybody else, Jags. I had to give you one, you know.
That's all right. My wife is listening. She's listening to the whole thing. She's laughing.
And Kelly is laughing her ass off. You have one more question. What's that, sir?
Jags, you got a last question for our guest?
No, I'm good.
Okay. I'll flip it over to Jar Jar.
All right. So the final question, as we always do, is there anything that you truly geek? I mean, you've told us a lot, I guess, like comic books and everything, but is there a secret thing that you geek out about that people don't know, that you're like, maybe that's too much for them?
I mean, other than what I do sexually, I can't imagine anything in my personal life that would be too much for. Well, you know, I feel that way, that I'm not too much, but you'd be amazed how many people are afraid of me. People don't like that I don't fit whatever box they're in. And there are people out there who, when they find out that I'm Jewish, are resentful and hateful. There are people out there who don't know I'm gay, and when they find out, they're resentful and hateful. I was talking with a high school classmate last night about our teacher's death. And we were talking about how few of my classmates through the years have stayed in touch and don't seem to, they're almost resentful I've been successful instead of enjoying it and like, oh, good for Jeff and yay. It's like, who do you think you are? It's like, I don't think I'm anybody. Why would you even ask that question? But I collect TV guides. I collect comic books. My home is filled with Eastern European crystal and china and artwork and things that I inherited from my family. I eat too much or I eat the wrong things, so I carry extra weight that I'm not exactly proud of. But some people like that. In fact, I get hit on more when I'm a little heavier than when I get thinner.
I had to let that one go.
No, please. No. If you got a punchline, go for it, Ben.
I was going to say, hey, more cushion for pushing, baby.
Yeah. As a matter of fact. I mean, I'm sure the specifics of what my sex life have been might bother some people. But the same is true of you guys. If all three of you were injected with truth serum and they said, all right, how big is your dick? How many times did you have a gay experience? How many times did you cheat on your wife? How many times are you molested? And all those questions don't portend to all three of you, but I'll bet at least one of those questions would pop up with an answer. It's like, when I do shows in nightclubs and theaters, I always do a Q&A afterwards. Inevitably, somebody wants to talk about Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz and their marriage. And they push. Well, I heard he did this and she did that, and he slept with this and she slept with that. And I said, first of all, why do you need to know that? We don't watch I Love Lucy 70-something years later because of what either of them looked like naked or who they slept with or what unkind word came out of their mouth once when they were having a stressful day. And if you want to know what's going on, I'll say the same thing I said to you guys. I tell everybody, go into your own neighborhood, knock on the door, have a truth serum ready, inject it, sit them down and ask them the same questions, and you're going to get the same answers, but the names won't be famous.
Right. Well said.
It's no one's business what people do for sexual fun. I'll talk about it in the big picture. I'm not ashamed to say, if you would ask me, what do you enjoy doing in bed? I would use all the right medical terms and say, well, I enjoy this. But what did you and Freddie Mercury do together? You're never going to find that out. Unless you take me to dinner and flex your muscles for me. Then I will... I'm sorry, what was I saying? See, Ben, you came across something. A flexed bicep, large or small, a flexed bicep instantly makes things happen. And it's been that way since I was a little kid. I didn't even know why. I felt this tingling down there. The Muscle Beach movies drove me out of my mind as a kid.
So you can't watch wrestling.
Why not?
Or is that porn for you?
Mention a wrestler from the late 70s and early 80s that I didn't have sex with.
Oh, we even get into wrestling.
Okay, yeah, we could be here for a lot longer, folks. So
have me back, and I'll talk about that. I don't mind mentioning names because they're all dead now. But no, they're in the late 70s and early 80s. The people who did porn and the people who were professional wrestlers, when they came to New York, they all congregated at one gymnasium in Midtown Manhattan. I won't say where it is because it's still there, and I don't want to smear their name. And there were performers who did live sex shows, and I would meet them, and I would meet the wrestlers at the gym, and they were very happy to have company of someone like me who wasn't there because they were famous, who was there because I understood that they were lonely. New York City can be a very lonely place if you're there for business and you're not staying in the ritzy hotel. You're staying just in a clean place to stay while you do your business. And I got to eat dinner and hang out with and have sex with a lot of these people.
And that is all going to be in his book.
It's all going to be in the book, yes. It's already in the book. I've got like 2 days of writing left to do, and the book is finished. And everyone's staring into space. Jags now that Jags it's getting me dark out, he puts his sunglasses on.
No, it's getting dark, and I'm about to have to bail because I have another show to do tonight. So
Yeah, I'm actually gonna wrap this up. Folks, if you want to know anything else about Geoffrey Mark, the show notes are up above or down below. Watch for his newest books coming out.
I'm available on Facebook. I'm available on Instagram. I'm available on X. And I answer every question asked of me, as long as it's not impertinent and stupid.
Right?
Don't ask me how big my dick is. I'm not going to answer you.
No, you have to take him to dinner and flex a muscle for that.
Yes.
Absolutely. I don't think that's too much, really.
So
it's not like I'm asking for cash.
Jags.
What up? Y'all can catch me every Friday night on Hellfire Entertainment on Sound Injection. Actually, this Friday, we have the Soap Girls from South Africa on. Those girls are insane, so please check it out. 9 o'clock Eastern Time, 8 o'clock Central Standard Time. Check us out.
Have me on, Jags.
Absolutely.
He's a jazz singer. It fits your show.
And Jeremy.
Oh, hey, check me out every Tuesday night on Splash Pages, where we talk comic books like nerds, and you know, it's fun. Every Wednesday I'm here usually nowadays with these guys, except for next Wednesday. Here we're on a break.
Yes, next Wednesday we are on a break.
What's on the Wednesday after that?
The Wednesday after that we have Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Dan Lasseter.
So tune in for that.
Yeah. Actually, we have some pretty cool shows coming up.
And to be on Jeremy's show, you have to know what a splash page is.
Yes,
and
it's okay. We've had people on, like last night. They were doing the bumper for us, and they called us Slash Pages. I'm like, oh, this guy must think he's on a horror show.
Now that's a whole different genre, Richard.
Right. So Jags unfortunately bailed because he had to. He is running another show tonight on Hellfire Entertainment Media, folks. So make sure you check that out.
Yes.
Check out
seconds.
Check out Geoffrey Mark's show. It's in the show notes. I mean, it's there. It's very simple. It's there. But in all seriousness, I want to thank Geoffrey for coming out and hanging out with us tonight, telling us some stories that most people wouldn't have heard. Yeah. My nipples are still hard.
Yeah, hang out after this show. We'll talk a couple of minutes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But in all seriousness, to all our veterans and first responders, we want to thank you for doing what you do so people like us can do what we do.
Yay.
Stay safe. We'll see you next week. And we'll be already here as soon as Ben finds this button.
The button.
Step it off, bring it down.